Rangair Tushtuamsastanubihi Veshema Devahitai Yadayuhu Swastina Indro Vridrashravaha Swastina Pusha Vishwavedaha Swastina Tarksho Arishtanemihi Swastino Bruhaspatir Dadatu Yo Antah Pravishya Mamavacha Imam Prashuptam Sanjeevayati Akhila Shakti Daraswadamna Anyamshta Hastacharana Shravanatvadin Pranan Namo Bhagavate Purushaya Tubhyam Lasatu Srimadananda Tirtendurno Hrudambare Yadvachaschandrika Swanta Santapam Vinikrantati Padavakya Pramanagnan Pranamya Shirasa Gurun Vyakarishe Yatha Bhotam Vishnu Tattva Vinirnayam. So good afternoon, good evening, and good morning, everyone. So we are in our second session on the philosophy of the Gayatri Mantra. And as we discussed last time, Gayatri Mantra is a natural sequence to the contemplation of Mandukya Upanishad, where Varuna has gone deep inside and contemplating his Antaryamin, the supreme being who is his Antaryamin, and he celebrates him in the Gayatri Mantra of describing as the Omkara. So the Gayatri Mantra is a natural sequence to Mandukya Upanishads, and that's the reason why we're spending about 2 to 3 weeks to have a deep understanding of what is this Gayatri Mantra all about. It's such a popular mantra that we all recite every day, some of us, and in the temples, and it's all pervasive. But what is actually Gayatri Mantra is what we are trying to understand from a perspective of the Upanishads and the Vedas, because that is what we are interested in, not all the things that have been made up and cooked up over the last few hundred years. We want to go back to our Vedic times. We want to go back and understand what is it our rishis had seen and what is it that our rishis meant when they said that this mantra is the Gayatri Mantra. Okay, so before we get started, we got three of our friends, all sitting in various continents. Harish from the US, Suresh from Switzerland, and Sushrut in the UK. So each of them, they are going to recite the Gayatri Mantra, and we can maybe close our eyes and listen to them as they recite the Gayatri Mantra. Harish, thank you very much. You go first.
ॐ भूर्भुवस्सुवः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्।
ॐ भूर्भुवस्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्।
ॐ भूर्भुवस्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्.
Thank you very much, Sushrut, Suresh, and Harish. That was wonderful. So the overall anatomy of the Gayatri Mantra, we discussed this briefly, but always worth revising again. So it's got three components. You got the Pranava, which is the Omkara. Then you have the Vyahriti, which is Bhur, Bhuvaha, Swaha. And then you have the Gayatri, which is Tat Savituhu Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Diyo Yo Naha Prachodayat. So at this point, I want to remind you that this mantra was revealed to Vishwamitra when he was in deep meditation. And as Sushrutji last time informed us about the biography, the life history of Vishwamitra, this rishi was in deep penance for hundreds, thousands, 10,000 years. We are told that he has been meditating on the supreme Brahman. He's been meditating on the supreme being, also called as Brahman in our Vedas. And in that deep contemplation, this particular sequence of Pranava, Vyahriti, and Gayatri was revealed to him. Yeah, and this has gone into the 10th rik of the 62nd sukta of the third mandala of the Rig Veda. Yeah. So this Rishi, Vishwamitra, when he is contemplated and he has given this mantra, that is an obvious answer to us that that revelation that he had, and when he was in contemplation of the Brahman and he saw this mantra, obviously has to be about the supreme Brahman. Yeah, so that is the first point here. Again, the contextual relevance of the Gayatri mantra. The reason why I bring this up is we've had a few discussions last week, and we've also had some messages saying, who is this Gayatri of the Gayatri mantra? So the first answer there is the contextual relevance. Here is a Rishi who is contemplating on the supreme Brahman, and then he sees this mantra, which naturally has to be celebrating the supreme Brahman. Okay. But there is a bit of a confusion here, or there is a bit of something that needs a bit more of a clarification. Who is this Gayatri? Yes, you say that the contextual relevance means that the Vishwamitra is talking about the supreme being, but look at the word Gayatri. Who is this Gayatri? As the name suggests, a feminine principle. Yeah. So that is fair enough. So Gayatri is a name of somebody, a girl or a lady is usually named as a Gayatri, and in our traditions, it's unlikely that a boy or a male is named as Gayatri. So it seems to go along with the feminine principle. But then you are saying that Vishwamitra contemplated the supreme Brahman, and then this is how this mantra came about. So I have a question here, a multiple choice question, just to open up for discussion. So I've got a question here saying, is the supreme being male, female, or he is both, or he is none of these? So I'm going to pause for a minute and let's have a discussion on that, so that it gives us all a flavor of where we come from when we understand the Gayatri mantra. So can I get one of our friends to start it off, please?
I would go for men. Man is man.
So
Purusha.
okay. So you feel that that's a male. Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
I would go for both man and women. Lady.
Okay, thank you, Veena ji. Anybody else?
Is it Purusha of so Saguna Brahman or Nirguna Brahman? If it is the absolute supreme, he hasn't got any sex. If he has got Saguna Brahman, it can be a man or a woman, or it can be both. So
Okay, sorry, Sheila ji.
It depends on the context of how Vishwamitra prayed, isn't it? To whom? Gayatri Devi means she is the Veda Mata, it is said. So for the Narayana, it is, I mean, the mantra is Surya Narayana we pray, because so he is the one who illuminates Surya. So we pray him as Narayana. But in what context Vishwamitra, I don't know. I don't understand that. Can you please tell us that?
Okay, so yeah, so we'll go through. So there is a diverse view here. I think we had one Sudarshan saying that Gayatri is a male, and then we had Veena ji saying it's both male and female, and then Sheila ji coming with the concept of Nirguna Brahman and Saguna Brahman, which is nowhere in the Sheila ji. I need to point this out in the third mandala. Vishwamitra Mandala of Rig Veda, there is nowhere a discussion about Saguna Brahman and Nirguna Brahman, but we will bring it up. So what is the answer there? Yeah, so
Madhu,
you see male,
Suresh
female,
here.
or both? Sorry,
Madhu,
we had somebody.
Suresh here, Madhu. Is it that the supreme being in the Vedas is addressed both as in all the three genders, in the neutral gender, in the masculine gender, and in the feminine gender?
Yeah, thank you, Suresh. Yeah, so again,
one more thing. Can I put fourth as well as a choice? None of the above, because I think it's because you don't describe no material thing to Brahman. So
okay. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so that is also good. Let me just increase the volume here. Yeah, so that is also good. So diverse views, 4 different views. So let me take it up. So I think most of you are right with the way you approach it. It's also the way in which you approach the Supreme Being. So the first point there to be said is, do we understand the Supreme Being as an abode of infinite auspicious attributes or not? So can I have the answer there? Do we accept that the Supreme Being is an abode of infinite auspicious attributes? Yes or no?
Yes.
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 Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you. So if the Supreme Being is an abode of infinite auspicious attributes, there is no question of bringing in the concept of Nirguna Brahman here. Yeah, he is Saguna, Saguna of infinite non-material auspicious attributes. So that is the first argument there, that he is an abode of infinite auspicious attributes. Now, when you talk about infinite auspicious attributes, there are some attributes that we call goes with a feminine gender. And there are certain attributes that go with what we call as a male gender in our vyavahara, in our material transactions. We say, oh, these are all the set of attributes which, and I'm not being sexist here, but I'm just saying from a business sense, a set of attributes would go with, you know, a motherly attribute, for example, and a set of attributes would go with a fatherly, a way of dealing with things. Yeah, but the Supreme Being is all encompassing. He's got all the qualities of something, not anything that we can think about. It's actually there in the Supreme, not only in infinite range but also in infinite extent. So if you look at that, then the Supreme Being actually involves the attributes of male and female. So it feels that the Supreme Being actually has all these attributes. And for our contemplation and upasana, when we think about a particular concept, then we might actually give the Supreme Being a name what we call as feminine. So this is all only at our level, but at his level, these are all just attributes, and we only call this as males or females. And I presume, I hope you get that difference. The reason why I say that is, yes, he's got both of male and female attributes, but also Neeta and Suresh are also right in the sense that he's got both. And he's sometimes also used in a very neutral gender, napumsakalinga as we call it. So you have purushalinga, you have strilinga, and you have napumsakalinga. Okay, so when you talk about the Supreme, you can use certain attributes, you can worship in certain attributes that go with purushalinga, you can worship in certain attributes which would go with the strilinga, or when you worship him as having both the attributes of a male and a female, then that is what is called napumsakalinga for the Supreme. Yeah. So that is, for example, I've listed some of these words. For example, Purusha, Rama, Krishna, Vishnu, Narasimha, Vasudeva, they all have a Purushalinga. Stri, Yonihi, Suti, Prakriti, Mohini, Gayatri, Akshara, they all appear to have a feminine, they all appear to be Strilinga. But then look at our rishis, the way they describe the Supreme. They talk about Brahman, they talk about the Atma, they talk about Paramatma. This is all is neutral. There's neither male or female. So if you look at grammatically, it's quite interesting that our scriptures talk about the Supreme and praise the Supreme in all 3 ways. So male, female, and both of the above. So Neeta, none of the above really depends upon the way you look at it. If you think that it talks about both the feminine and the male together, then you could say, yes, okay, maybe none of the above. Or if you talk about not from a material aspect, not a material male, not a material female, then yes, none of the above. I wanted to introduce this concept called Ardhanarishwara. Yeah, so this Ardhanarishwara concept of Vedic philosophy, some of you will be very familiar with this. So could I have some of you to, if anybody has got any ideas or thoughts on this Ardhanarishwara in our Sanatana Dharma, please go ahead and inform us, please, and share your thoughts of who the Ardhanarishwara is. So Ardha Nari and so Ardha Nari Ishvara. So look at those words. Ishvara, Nari, Ardha. Ardha means half. Nari means female, female attributes. Ishvaraha is a male attribute. Okay. So in our Vedic scriptures, some of you may be surprised to know that this concept of Ardhanarishwara is applied to the three deities that are considered usually worshipped in across the Bharatvarsha. So Vishnu, of course, Chaturmukha Brahma, we don't worship him. Chaturmukha Brahma and Shiva. In the Vedic pantheon and in Vedic philosophy, all these three are celebrated as Ardhanaris. Okay. Now, the Ardhanari of Vishnu is an independent Ardhanari, which is a part of his attributes. Whereas the Ardhanari forms of Chaturmukha and Rudra are dependent on the Supreme. Yeah, is the view there. Now, the clue to that also comes from many of the names that you will be familiar with. You may have many friends with these names. Lakshmi Narayana, Radha Krishna. Oh, yeah. So those names together, why do we have these names Lakshmi Narayana, Radha Krishna? Not just because Lakshmi is Narayana's consort, not because Krishna's consort is Radha, but actually also to give you that inner philosophy that you need to think about, that the Supreme Lord is the abode of infinite auspicious attributes that includes what we call as feminine, that includes what is called masculine. And of course, more popularly, recently over the last several hundred years in Bharatvarsha, this concept of Ardhanarishwara is particularly applied to the Shiva and the Shakti, yeah, of Rudra, and celebrated quite a lot in South. Yeah. So the Ardhanarishwara is not just for Shiva and Shakti, but primarily with, as I hope I've illustrated on several occasions, that our Vedas believe that Swatantro Bhagavan Vishnu. Yeah, so that Vishnu, the chap who's got an attributes which we call as Vishnu, is the Swatantra. He is the topmost. He is topmost Ardhanari. That is why Lakshmi Narayana, that is why Radha Krishna. And the Rudra is an exalted deity. He is the Panchamukhi. He is from his body is where the universe comes. As you know, Ahankarika, from his Ahankara Tattva. You have Tejasa, you have Tamasa Ahankara, Tejasa Ahankara, Vaikarika Ahankara. From those concepts of Rudra is where the whole of material creation comes, but he is also celebrated as an Ardhanari. Okay, so I hope it gives you some new ideas to think about. I'm just giving suggestions here where you can go and read up a lot about this. Lots of literature around this. Now that becomes important because gender in philosophy, gender in Vedic philosophy. Yeah, what is this gender in Vedic philosophy? And I've got an MCQ again. Is gender male or female applicable to a sentient jiva only? Or is it applicable to the material bodies they occupy? Or is it both of the above or none of the above? So what is our view here? Can you give your contributions here, please?
It's
Suresh.
applicable to the sentient jiva, I think.
Okay, thank you, Suresh. Anybody else has a different view here? Okay, so sorry, Manjunaji? Yeah, no. Anybody else?
I was going to say it is both.
It's to both material
Sorry,
body
this
and
is Deval here, yeah.
Yeah, Deval, I got you. Yeah, so okay, thanks, Deval. So both jivas and bodies we use this
so
concept.
we know that the material body biologically is of a particular gender.
Okay.
But yeah, but there is some, I think you've mentioned it in some of the lecture before, that the jivas are male and female as well.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Deval. So that's a very useful insight there about material from a vyavahara. So from a mundane business perspective of our lives, it feels like we all seem to occupy different types of bodies, and somehow something that biologically one way we call it as female, and something that is biologically another way we call it as male. But Deval, here is the argument. So let's take a body which we call as male, and we take a body which is called a female. Let's break this open. So when you break this body open into its elements, all that you have is Panchabhutas. That's it. Yeah, it's made of only these 5 components. Both a body of a male and a body of a female are primarily made only of these 5 components. Yeah. Does that have a male or a female Panchabhuta? There is only one Panchabhuta. There is no male Panchabhuta. There is no.
I asked you for a minute. I don't know. Is there a question?
No, I'm just saying, yeah. So there is no 2 types of Panchabhutas. There is only one type of Panchabhutas. So when we say this body is made of male and this body is female, it's very superficial. The reason why I say that is our rishis have actually thought about this problem very, very deeply, and they've understood that this material body giving genders to the material body actually does not make sense, because the bodies are eventually made of only Panchabhutas. Panchabhutas are jadas. The Panchabhutas are jadas and they are not sentient being. And the rishis would argue, how can you give a sex to a Panchabhuta which is just a jada? So the argument there is that the gender, the feminine and the main gender primarily is only for the sentient jivas, is the view of the Sanatana Dharma. Yeah, think about that possibility. Now, the reason why I say that is our founding father, Veda Vyasa, what is his view on this? That is what matters here. What is his view of who the supreme being is? Is he male? Is he female? Can a supreme being be female? Can a supreme being be male? Can he be both or none of the above and everything else? So if you want answer to that, you have to go to the Vedanta Sutras. And this is the beauty. Veda Vyasa has not left any topic for philosophical discussion. There is a particular adhikaranam called Prakritya Adhikaranam in the 4th Adhyaya, starting from verse 24 to 28. Those 5 verses, in those 5 verses, he takes up an onslaught on this argument and then establishes 2 points. One, the Supreme Being can be worshipped, can be contemplated as an abode of feminine principles, and he can also be worshipped as an abode of male principles, or both simultaneously. And as a corollary, this feminine and male gender principles can apply only to sentient beings, not to jadas, which is a body. When the jiva is gone, we only call it a shava. We don't call it as a male dead body and a female dead body. We just say this is a dead body. Yeah. So there is your answer, that the jivas only have male and female. There are a lot of evidence within our Vedic scriptures to talk about and give us an idea about this. It even says male and female jivas in moksha, they're doing this, that, and so on. Rig Veda talks about all this. So there are lots of discussions. So I will close this slide, and I hope that it elicited some interesting discussions and you're able to think about this problem a bit more. Because Gayatri, the reason why I brought this argument is, Gayatri appears to be the name that suggests the feminine principle. So if you take the rules of Veda Vyasa, then yes, God can be worshipped as a feminine principle or a male principle. So now going on to the next slide. So here is another problem as well. Is this mantra called Gayatri mantra because it is in Gayatri Chandas? Fair enough. What is in Gayatri Chandas? This is the Brahma Gayatri. Just to remind you here, Gayatri, this anatomy of the Gayatri, there are two ways of looking at it. The way Vishwamitra has seen this Gayatri has Pranava, Vyahriti, and the Gayatri. So that is called Vishwamitra Gayatri. Whereas the way Chaturmukha has seen it is called Brahma Gayatri, which is the Gayatri of 24 syllables. Yeah. And as you know, the Chandas, there is Gayatri, Ushnuk, Anushtuk, Brihati, Pankti, Trishtuk, and Jagati. So there are 7 main chandas, and Gayatri is the first chandas. Okay, fair enough. So this mantra, the mantra that is revealed to Chaturmukha Brahma, has got 24 syllables, and I have listed those 24 syllables for you. Okay. Now the question there is, if somebody says this is called as Gayatri mantra because it's got 24 syllables, then the problem that we will have to answer then is, but in Rig Veda, there are about 2,449 mantras in Gayatri Chandas. They should all be called as Gayatri mantra. Why is only this is called Gayatri mantra? Okay, so that is a problem. If we take it is just the meter, and that is why it is called Gayatri mantra. It's part of the answer, but it is not the full answer. So here is the evidence of why Gayatri is celebrated as the supreme being, and hopefully this will give you the answer. Okay, to get the answer to who the Gayatri is, we should go to Chandogya Upanishad, 3rd Adhyaya, 12th subsection, the very first verse. You will find this quite familiar because we have done this in various other concepts before. So how does this Chandogya Upanishad talk about the Gayatri? It says, Gayatri va idang sarvam bhutam yadidam kincha vagvai Gayatri vagva idang sarvam bhutam Gayati cha trayate cha. This is the proof for who the Gayatri is, or the Gayatri mantra comes from Chandogya Upanishad, which is part of the Samaveda. Yeah. So what does it say? Gayatri va idang sarvam. Look at your Mandukya Upanishad. What did it say? Om iti etad aksharam idang sarvam. What did Purusha Shukta say? Purusha eva idang sarvam. So if you look at that, Gayatri va idang sarvam, Aksharam idang sarvam, Purusha eva idang sarvam. And again, as I told you before, there is always Samanvaya in Shastra. They all say the same thing, provided we have the right lens to look at it. Yeah. So everybody, here Akshara is qualified as Sarvam, Purusha is qualified as Sarvam, Gayatri is also qualified as Sarvam. And we have seen this before in Gita. Krishna uses Sarvam in so many places, 14 places. And he actually gives a definition of what Sarvam is in 11th chapter, 40th verse. Perhaps maybe I could call upon one of our friends to recite this. Anybody wants to have a go at this, please? The 40th verse of 11th chapter.
Shall I tell, Madhuji?
Yeah, Shilaji, go on. Yes, thank you.
Nama purastadata prushtataste namo stute sarvata eva sarva anantaviryamita vikramastam sarvam samapnoshi tatoshi sarva.
Thank you, Shilaji. Very, very, very nice. So the last line I have underlined for our benediction. Sarvam sam apnoshi tato asi sarvaha. So Gita, Krishna himself gives a definition of what that sarvam is. Sarvam is that which has pervaded everywhere. That which has pervaded everywhere. Pervasion in time, space, and gunas is called sarvam. And that is the sarvam is the classic definition of who the Purusha or the Brahman is. So that is your first clue. Sarvam, Gayatri va idang sarvam, says the Chandogya Upanishad. And the same Mundaka Upanishad has also defined Yesha Sarveshwaraha, Yesha Sarvajnaha, Yesha Antaryami, Yesha Yonihi, Sarvasya, Prabhavapyayohi Bhutanam. Yeah. And again, we have done this before. Vishnu is given a name as Sarvaha. Okay. So what does that sarvam actually mean? Sarvam means that which has pervaded in time, space, and guna, which means that which is complete, res completa, that which is full, that which is purna, that which is paripurna. So sarvam is that which is paripurna. So what does Chandogya Upanishad says? Gayatri va idang sarvam. This Gayatri is paripurna. This Gayatri is complete. So we all know from all that we have studied over the last several months, there is only one being who is complete, who is perfect, who is infinite, and that is the Supreme Brahman. So there is your clue and answer from Chandogya that the Gayatri that is being discussed in Samaveda is Brahman, who is Paripurna. Yeah, and the same in the last verse, the second line of the same word, the Upanishad says, gives you the etymology of Gayatri. And it says, Gayati cha, Trayate cha, iti Gayatri. Okay. So Gayati cha, Gayati means sing. Yeah, let's not forget, this is Samaveda, which is all about singing. And it says, this Upanishad says, Gayati cha. So the Supreme Being is the only one who knows all of the infinite Vedas, and he simultaneously sings all of the infinite Vedas. Okay. And Trayatecha, he is the one who protects the universe, and he is the one who protects all that are there in this universe. Yeah. So that is one meaning of that Gayatecha, Trayatecha. But from a soul's perspective, Gayatecha, Trayatecha, you sing his praise, he will protect you. That is why he is called Gayatri. So you have two approaches to this. Gayatecha, Trayatecha, iti Gayatri. So that gives you a clear indication of who this Gayatri is from Chandogya Upanishad. Gayatri, yes, it may mean a name of a feminine principle, but as we have discussed so many times before, the whole of Vedic Sanskrit and Vedic language is etymological. Everything needs to be split open. Chadayanti iti chandamsi. To get into the inner meanings, you have to open it up. And we discussed last week about everything being encrypted in the Vedas so that it can be preserved for eternity. So that encryption is there. We just need the right program and software to decrypt it and understand the meanings. So Gayatri there actually may mean a feminine principle, but fundamentally it is describing a particular attribute of the Supreme Being as Gayaticha, Trayatecha. Okay, so this Brahman is Purusha then, because Purusha eva idang sarvam is what the Purusha Shukta is saying. Yeah, and then if you look at Mandukya Upanishad, it says Om iti etad aksharam idang sarvam. Akshara also is him. Yeah, and it started off with Om, so that is also him. The name of Sarvaha in Vishnu Sahasranama is also him. So this is perfectly scientific, and that is how, that's what attracts me to do this reading, because it's perfectly scientific. And once everything is linked up with everything else, and if you put all together, then you get the equation. Gayatri equals Brahman equals Purusha equals Akshara equals Omkara equals Sarvaha. Okay. Hope this slide is helpful to understand who this Gayatri of Vishwamitra is. He is contemplating on the Supreme Brahman, which is what the Chandogya Upanishad is talking about. Yeah. Now, the same Chandogya Upanishad then goes on to describe who this Gayatri is. It says, Seisha Chatushpada Shadvida Gayatri Tadetad Rucha Abhi Anuktam. So, Seisha Chatushpada. And it says this Gayatri has got 4 aspects. And then it goes on, immediately says, Tadetad Rucha Abhi Anuktam. So, there is a Rik. And this is the beauty of the Vedas. The Vedas themselves give internal evidence. So this Chandogya Upanishad says, look, in Rig Veda, there is a Rik. Which Rik is that? Tavanasya Mahima Tato Jayamshcha Purushaha Pado Asya Sarva Bhutani Tripadasya Amrutam Divi Iti. That is what the Chandogya Upanishad is saying. Look, there is a Rik. There is a Rik in Rig Veda, which is actually describing this Gayatri as Chatushpada, and it is giving this. What is that Rik? That Rik is our Purusha Shukta. What did it say? Yetavanasya Mahima Ato Jayam Purusha Ado Asya Vishwabhutani Tripadasya Amrutam Divi. Tripad Urdva Udait Purushaha Pado Asya Iha Abhavat Punaha. So when you look at this Purusha Shukta and the verse of the Chandogya Upanishad, which itself gives a reference to Purusha Shukta, it is absolutely clear that Gayatri is the Purusha of the Purusha Shukta. Yeah, and the same Chandogya Upanishad then concludes by saying, Yadvai tad Brahma iti idam, Yadvai tad Brahmeti idam. And it says this Gayatri is this Brahman. Yeah. So I hope I was able to convince you and clarify some of the doubts that some of you had, and you had sent some messages as well. So you need to be aware of Chandogya Upanishad, which is Apaurusha, and it's authoritative. It is supremely authoritative. So the Gayatri there is the Purusha who is Brahman himself, celebrated in the Purusha Sukta. Okay, now let's briefly recap who this Brahman is. And as you know, Veda Vyasa said the very first sutra there, Atato Brahma Jignasa. And then he said Brahma, and we described this several times. Ata kasmad uchyate brahmeti brihanto hi asmin gunaha. That which pervades time, space, and attributes is Brahman. And Acharya, with various evidence everywhere, concludes Brahma Shabdascha Vishnaveva. This Brahman or Gayatri is Vishnu himself. Why? Vishnu is also etymological. Vishal Vyaptau. Wish means to pervade, to enter, to occupy. To pervade in time, space, and attributes is the literal meaning of Vishnu, which is the meaning of Brahman. Yeah. So when you look at all these evidences, then it becomes very clear that Om is Akshara, is Sarvaha, is Atma, is Gayatri, is Purusha, is Brahman, is Vishnu, and of course he's got infinite other names. So as per our limited capacity, we can grasp a few of the attributes of the Supreme Lord and worship him. Okay, so that is the next. We are taking a stepwise approach here. So gradually we are building up the argument as to who this Gayatri is. So now we can confidently say that this Gayatri is Vishnu, or the Gayatri equals to that supreme being who has been celebrated as Vishnu, which describes an attribute of him, which is he is all pervasive. Okay, now we build it up a bit more because we have done Mandukya Upanishad, so much we have done about Mandukya, and we got all this Omkara, and we expanded how Omkara denotes so many things. So then it means Gayatri is the same as all that has been described in Mandukya Upanishad. Yeah, what are those? Vishwa, Tejasa, Prajna, Turya, Aniruddha, Pradyumna, Sankarshana, Vasudeva, Krishna, Rama, Narasimha, Varaha, the Vyuha forms of the Supreme, Omkara, Akshara, Sarvaha, Brahmaha, Atmaha, and Gayatri. So they all fall into place when you take a systematic approach of the scriptures to understand who Gayatri is. Okay, so we move on. So we said we have now understood who this Gayatri is. Gayatri is not another deity who is a feminine principle worshipped in various parts of India as Gayatri Devata. As per Chandogya Upanishad, which is Samaveda, Gayatri is the supreme being himself, the supreme Paramatma himself equals Vishnu. So we have understood this Omkara is a direct relevance to this Vishnu, the supreme being. Omkara celebrates the supreme. Now all that we need to do for the rest of today's session is to go and understand what then is Bhur Bhuva Suvaha. What does that mean? Okay, you've told me that Gayatri means supreme being, Omkara means supreme being. Then what does the mean? Why is that Bhur Bhuva Suvaha that is sandwiched between Omkara and the Gayatri mantra? So to understand the Gayatri mantra, we need to actually understand what Bhur Bhuva Suvaha is. Now, the classic rendering of what Bhur Bhuva Suvaha is that it is the expansion of, or it is the further description of who the Omkara Tattva is. Okay. Now we know from the Omkara Tattva, I've just given you a summary here about who the Omkara is in Mandukya Upanishad. Please go back and revise at some point. And all concepts of the Supreme is all summarized here, which Varuna describes as representing Omkara. Now this concept of Pranava Upasana is not just unique to Mandukya Upanishad. If you go to Taittiriya Upanishad, for example, which is part of the Krishna Yajurveda, Taittiriya Upanishad in the first chapter, it has got a separate section called Pranava Upasanam. Then it has got a separate section called Vyahruti Upasanam. Okay, it's beautiful the way they describe this. And I like reciting this mantra. I'll just give you the brief mantra and what it means. It is taking you to the Vedic times. It is taking you to that Veda Shala, Yajna Shala, where the fire sacrifice is happening. And in the fire sacrifice, we have done this when we did Purusha Shukta. How does a Vedic fire, what is the anatomy of a Vedic fire sacrifice? We said there are various types of kundas, and then there are 4 main ritviks or priests: Hotru, Advaryu, Udgatru, Brahman. Hotru recites the Rig Veda, Advaryu recites the Yajur Veda, Udgatru recites the Sama Veda. Brahman is not the Atharva Veda, that's a typo. He is a supervisor. He just ensures that all these 3 fellows are reciting the mantras properly and that they are doing the yajna properly. That person is called Brahman. And each one of them have got 3 assistants. Okay. And together they will do this yajna for the Yajamana and his wife, Yajamana and Patni. They are sitting there. There are 16 priests who are reciting the Vedic mantras. This is not ritualistic. This 16 number is philosophically quite profound. We know the Shodashaka Purusha. We've discussed this so many times. Remember that 16. It is so significant, and there are 16 priests. What the Taittiriya Upanishad is telling us is, how do these 16 fellows interact with each other during the Yajnashala, during the fire sacrifice? And they constantly say Om, Om. So look at how this mantra goes. Om iti Brahma, Om iti idam sarvam, Om iti etad anukritir hasmava api, yo Oshravaya ashrawayanti, Om iti samani gayanti, Om Shom iti shastrani samshanti, Om iti advaryuhu pratigaram pratigrunati, Om iti Brahma prasauti, Om iti agnihotram janati, Om iti brahmanaha pravakshannaha Brahmo apapnuvaniti, Brahmaiva apapnoti. And it celebrates of how they talk only as Om. Okay, it is still, I believe, there are certain villages in India where Sanskrit is still spoken colloquially, and they would say yes, Om. They will not say yes, they'll say Om. Can I come here? Om. They use Om everywhere in their language. In ancient India, Om used to be used for routine discussion as well as philosophical discussion. And I hope you are able to grasp how that Omkara is brought into not only in daily life, but also when you do Yajnashala, when you're doing Rig sacrifices, every priest will always be saying Om with all these in the background. Okay. Now we move into, when they say this in the background, they are also thinking about the Vyahriti, because what the Vyahriti does in the Gayatri mantra is, it is the further expansion or explanation of who the Omkara is. So Vyahriti literally means explaining God's qualities well. And again, there is etymology for it. What does Vyahriti mean? Visheshena aharanti tasmad Vyahritayaha, which means these 3 words, Bhur Bhuva Suvaha, if you contemplate on it sincerely, it will bring God to you quickly, in the sense that you will be able to grasp this concept of God very quickly if you understand this Bhur Bhuva Suvaha as an explanation of Omkara. Okay, so let's expand this idea a bit more. So you have Bhur, Bhuvaha, Swaha. I have split this Bhuhu, Bhuvaha, and Swaha. And from Mandukya Upanishad, we know somehow Bhuhu represents Akara, Bhuvaha represents Ukara, and Swaha represents Makara. Okay, now let us go to the next level. Is that all it means? So I'm going to break here for a minute and get your ideas as to what Bhur Bhuva Suvaha actually mean. Yeah, can I just break for 30 seconds and get you to talk about this, please? What is our understanding of Bhur Bhuva Suvaha of Vyahriti?
Madhu, one understanding is it's like a Stula, Sukshma, and the Karana thing.
Okay, thank you, Sudarshan. Yeah, how does it link? How does that link with Stula, Shukshma, and Karana?
Yeah, Bhuva, and Suvarloka. Like, Bhur is the Stula, Bhuva is the Sukshma, and Suvar is the Karana Loka.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Sudarshan. Excellent points. Anybody else?
Madhu, I thought, I mean, I read it on Google somewhere. Sorry, my knowledge. Apologies for that. But that it stands for the Bhuloka, Bhuvarloka, and the material sky. Swaha.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, thanks, Deval. Yeah, thanks for that insight as well. So it fits in. We'll tackle that. Anybody else?
Vishwataijasa prajna.
Okay, thank you, Shilaji. Yes, yeah, that's good. That's good from our Mandukya Upanishad. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, so let me take Deval's point there about Bhur, Bhuvar, and Swarloka. Sudarshan, your point is wonderful. I haven't put this for today's presentation, but thank you very much for bringing those concepts. So now, as you know, we have done topics on creation, yeah, how this whole creation comes about. And there is a Vishwakarma Sukta. Ajasya Naba Avadhyekam Arpitam Yasmin Vishwani Bhuvanani Tastuhu is an important Rigveda mantra talking about the creation. There is the supreme being, from his navel came a lotus, and on top of it is sitting this Chaturmukha Brahma, then he is creating all the material world. This whole representation is completely metaphorical. It is not literally as though this Vishnu guy is sleeping and then there is some tube coming out and there is a real lotus and then there is this guy with 4 heads sitting on it. This whole idea is metaphorical. What that actually implies is Chaturmukha Brahma, as you know, is the Abhimani of Mahat Tattva. He is the first being who comes out during creation. And he is the Abhimani of Mahat Tattva, which then transforms into various components and eventually into the material universe. This lotus on which he sits has got 14 petals, so says the Shastras. These 14 petals basically indicates the 14 regions of the material universe. What we call as the earth, we could call this as Bhuloka. Then you have the one that is above as Bhuvarloka. And the third one is Swarloka. Then it goes on Janaloka, Tapaloka, Mahaloka, and Satyaloka. So there are 7, yeah, above, and there are 7 below. Yeah. So if you literally take Bhur Bhuva Swaha, representing Bhuloka, Bhuvarloka, and Swarloka, yes, that is helpful in the sense that Tat Srishtva Tadeva Anupravishat. You may remember this word, these verses from Taittiriya Upanishad as to what that says. When the Lord creates, he not only creates, but he also enters into its creation and looks after it. So in that sense, when Bhuvarloka is created, he enters, pervades into Bhuvarloka and maintains it. When Bhuvarloka is created, he has entered into Bhuvarloka and he creates and he maintains it. Similarly for Suvarloka. So if you understand that way, that Bhu Bhuvar Suvar Loka of Bhur Bhuva Suvaha of Vyahriti, then could mean that I am going to worship the Supreme Being who has pervaded the whole of universe, and a representation there, Upalakshana as we call it, is Bhuloka, Bhuvarloka, and Suvarloka. So that is fine if we say he has pervaded this. Now Sudarshan's view is also, it's from a Pindanda perspective, that is also amazing. So now let us look at etymology, because that is where our Vedic rishis are coming. So we have to think about what Vishwamitra had in his mind when he said Bhu. When he said Bhu, what did he say? So the Vyakarana says Bhu stands for Bhu Bahau Bahuhu Purnatayamiti. Okay. Bhu is an indication of plenitude. Plenitude. Plenitude means of infinite, something about infinite aspects, infinite components, lots, infinite. Yeah. Purna talks about Purna. Bhu actually is the meaning of Purna. Okay. Now here is another example of it. So Bhu is a short form of another Sanskrit word called Bhuma. I don't know whether you got any friends who got similar sounding names, Bhuma. So Bhuma, Bhu stands for Bhuma. What is Bhuma? Panini, as you know, is a great Sanskrit grammarian. He actually gives an etymology of what bhuma is, and he derives it as bahu plus iman. Bahu becomes bhu, and then iman becomes man, then becomes bhuman. So this bhu is the same as this bhu, and so on. So this is for the what shall I put it? This is for the ones that are more interested in these aspects of literature about etymology. So bhu is a shortened form of bhuma. In Chandogya Upanishad, there is a seventh verse. There is an amazing verse called Yo vai bhuma tatsukam nalpe sukamasti bhumaiva sukam bhumatveva vijijñasitavya iti bhuman bhagavo vijijñasa iti. Okay. Yo vai bhuma tatsukam na alpe sukamasti. It's a very famous verse. Yeah. So this bhuma, what is yo vai bhuma tatsukam means there is happiness only in the purnatva. He who is complete is happy. He is full is happy. Okay. So this famous verse about purnatva, or full of all auspicious attributes of virtues, happens in the 7th chapter, which is a conversation between Narada and Sanat Kumara. Yeah, for those of you interested in Chandogya Upanishad, go to the 7th chapter, where it is a systematic analysis of the Supreme Brahman who controls various aspects of material creation. Sanat Kumara teaches Narada this philosophy. So you can go and do that reference as to who that Bhuma is. So Bhu then means full of all auspicious attributes. Therefore, he is called Bhuman. He is described in the Chandogya Upanishad as Bhuma. And of course, our Veda Vyasa takes a Bhuma as a very significant word in the Vedas. And there is a separate section in the Vedantasutra called Bhumadikaranam. And he talks about this Bhuma, giving reference to Chandogya Upanishad. So you can do a self-study on that. Now, the reason why all this becomes important is when you think about Bhu, when you say Om Bhur Bhuvassuvaha, when you do that, when you're doing your puja, when you say Bhu, think about Bhu as somebody with full of auspicious attributes. And immediately the Chandogya verse should come to your mind, and the famous Brihadaranyaka Upanishad should come to your mind. What is that? Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnam Udachyate Purnasya Purnam Adaya Purnameva Avashishyate should immediately come to your mind, because they all mean the same. Bhu, Bhuma, and Purna is the same. So that gives you instantly an attribute of the Supreme. So in fact, Vyasa says, if there is one attribute of the Supreme that you want to contemplate, it should be Bhuma. Yeah, Bhuma Samprasadat Adyupadeshat. So Bhuma means, Bhumatva means infinitude. Not only infinite in qualities, infinite in transempirical qualities, but infinite in range for each quality. So you're talking about infinite and infinite to the power of infinite. That is the definition of the Supreme as per Veda Vyasa's philosophy, which is what we are following. So Bhu actually means that from a etymological perspective, with evidence from the Upanishads and the Sutra, which is what we have to do as Prasthana Trayas. So the Bhu may resemble Bhuloka or Stula Sharira, but that Bhu in the primary sense indicates Bhuman, which is the celebration of the Supreme. Now, what about Bhuvaha? So Bhuvaha then also becomes interesting. Bhuvaha, again, you have to split this. Bhuvaha, not just a region, but Bhuvaha is Bhuti Varaha equals Bhuvaha, or Bhutaishwaryena Varo Maha Aishwaryavaniti Bhuvaha, which means he is supremely powerful. Yeah, so that is the literal meaning of Bhuvaha. What is Bhuti? Bhuti means Unnati. What is Unnati? Unnati is a capacity of sentient beings to elevate themselves, is called Bhuti. Now, he who has that Bhuti becomes a Bhuta. So, Jivas are also called Bhutas in that perspective. But what does Vishnu Sahasranama tell us? Eko Vishnur Mahadbhutam. He is the highest among all Bhutas. Who is he? He is this Vishnu. He is celebrated as Bhuvaha in the Vyahriti. Okay, so when you say Bhuvaha, think about the supremely powerful being, the omnipotent being is Bhuvaha. Okay. Now here is an interesting anecdote I just want to introduce to you from Aitareya Aranyaka, Aitareya Upanishad, which is part of the Rig Veda, and that brings this concept about Bhu. Okay, I find it very, very interesting and hilarious how our rishis actually look at normal things that happen in our lives and then bring great philosophies. Yeah, the rishi takes up snoring. Yeah, so snoring as a celebration of Bhur. Here is a fellow who is snoring, and some of you will have your spouses snoring. So here is a lesson to you. Next time you have your spouses snoring, look at it from a different philosophical perspective rather than just nudging them or asking them to get out. But actually think about the philosophical sense, and then you will have some peace in yourself. So what is this? This Aitareya Upanishad says, Sa esho asuhu, sa esho pranaha, sa esha bhutishta abhutishta tam bhutiriti deva upasanchakrire te babur tasmad dha api etarhi shukto bhur bhuriti eva prashvasati. So that is the verse that I wanted to come to. So what this Rishi is saying in Aitareya, Mahidasa Aitareya, what he is saying is, prana, mukhya prana, who controls the breathing of our bodies, when we are in deep sleep, when we are shukto sleep, yeah, when we are in sleep, when some people snore, bhur bhur iti eva. So when people are snoring bhur and bhur, what it actually means is this mukhya prana, when you are sleeping, this mukhya prana is actually worshipping the Supreme Lord as bhu and bhu, that you are the most supremely powerful being. You are the most supremely powerful being is how the Mukhya Prana is worshipping this Lord as Bhur. So Shukto Bhur Bhur iti eva Prashvasati. He worships him. So here is a lesson for those of us who actually nudge our spouse and actually tell them off, but actually look at the philosophy there. Actually remind yourself that Mukhya Prana is actually worshipping the Lord as Bhur Bhur when your spouse is actually snoring. Okay, so says the Aitareya Upanishad. So all that we have now next to do is, what does Swaha then means? So we understood Bhu, who means that which has all sorts of auspicious attributes. Bhuvaha, Bhutivaraha is that which is supremely powerful. So then who is Swaha? The word Swaha comes from Suvaha. So in Vyakarana, when you have two vowels next to each other, one vowel can go off, and that's why it has become Swaha here, but actually it is Suvaha. What does Suvaha stands for? Ananta Sukatvat Suvaha. Ananta Sukatvat Suvaha means he is infinitely blissful. That is his fundamental nature. Because he is infinitely blissful, this whole creation comes about. Okay? And there is a famous verse, as you know, in Taittiriya Upanishad, 5th Anuvaka. Yato vacho nivartante aprapya manasa saha anandam brahmano vidwan. He who knows this is Brahman is Anandam. Anandam Brahmano Vidwan na vibeti kutaschana. That means he who knows this Brahman as infinitely blissful will never have transmigration ever again. And he will attain his moksha, which is his state of bliss. Yeah, so that is what the Taittiriya Upanishad says, that this Brahman is bliss himself. He is infinitely blissful, as how we call as Satchit and Ananda. So when we talk about Suvaha, then that becomes he is infinitely blissful. So to summarize, Bhur Bhuvas Suvaha actually celebrates the quality of the Supreme known as Gayatri, as somebody who is an abode of infinite auspicious attributes, who is supremely powerful, and he is infinitely blissful being. Yeah. So when you do that, then you have scope for further progression. Now, I'm not sure we have time to go through this Taittiriya Upanishad verses fully, but again, look at the importance that is given to Vyahriti. Because as I told you initially, there is a special upasana called Vyahriti Upasanam of Taittiriya Upanishad, where it says this Bhur Bhuva Suvaha, the meanings that I have explained to you today, it may be new for some of you, but these are only some of the few meanings that are available for our contemplation. If you look at Taittiriya Upanishad, there are lots more that is described about what this Vyahriti in addition stands for. Look for Vyahriti Upasanam of Taittiriya Upanishad. There is an interesting concept in this verse where it says the three Vyahritis, Bhur Bhuva Swaha, is for contemplation of mundane jivas like us. But the Upanishad says Chaturmukha Brahma has the fourth Vyahriti, which is Mahaha. So Om Bhur Bhuva Swaha Mahaha is how Chaturmukha Brahma meditates, so says the Taittiriya Upanishad, which is amazing. The reason why the Taittiriya Upanishad says that is, and I've given you pictorially here, and I've said we've done this how the Vishwa, the waking state is Vishwa, which is Aniruddha, which is Bhu. Aniruddha is a Vyuha form of the Lord. Similarly, Pradyumna is Bhuvaha, which is also Vyuha form of the Lord. Then you have Prajna, who is Swaha, which is equal to Sankarshana, which is the Vyuha form of the Lord. Then you have the fourth state of consciousness is Turiya, which is Vasudeva, which is also called Mahaha. So there are these four contemplations, and when you read these Upanishads, when you read this here, the last word here will say Chatasra Chatasro Vyahritaya. 4 times 4 equals 16. And the Upanishad will finish off saying Vyahriti is not 3 mate, Vyahriti is not 4. Vyahriti is 16 is how this one completes Taittiriya Upanishad. And that 16 should remind you of the 16 of the Yajna of the Vedic priest, where there were 16 priests doing that. Yeah, the same 16 comes here. The same 16 is the Shodasha Kala Purushaha. So what are these 16s? These are the Aniruddha Pradyumna Sankarshana Vasudeva forms of the Supreme Lord in various combinations. Of 4 times 4 becomes 16, and that is how Chaturmukha Brahma contemplates on the Supreme, which is his Vyahriti. But for us, I don't think we have the capacity to do the Vyahriti contemplation like Chaturmukha Brahma. But at least what we should do is, we should do with the 3 Vyahritis that has been described in the Vedas, and at least understand the Supreme Being as somebody with an abode of auspicious attributes, somebody who is all powerful, and somebody who is infinitely blissful. These 3 things is enough for us, because as I said last time, yam tata tata upasate sa tataiva bhavati. As you do upasana, so you become. So when you take that into practice, if you use these 3 Vyahritis and contemplate and understand the Supreme, at least we will attain our blissful state at the end. Okay, so that is the core philosophy of what Bhur Bhuva Suvaha is. And what I have done is, because of want of time, and I think we should finish Vyahriti today, I've given you I would say a bird's eye view. I've been scratching the surface about what Bhur Bhuva Suvaha actually means from a Vedic perspective. And of course, there are so many other views on that as well. So what have we done so far? We have looked at Om, we've looked at Bhur Bhuva Suvaha, and we said this Bhu who is Purna, Bhuvaha is Bhutivaraha, Suvaha is Ananta Sukhaha. Now the Gayatri comes into the picture. What the Gayatri will say is Tat Savituhu Varenyam. So when it says Tat Savituhu Varenyam, it is a further expansion of what actually is Purnatva is, that is denoted by Bhu, which is denoted by Akara. Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi. How does that explain Bhutivara, which is the expansion of Bhuvaha, which denotes the Ukara. Diyo yo naha prachodayat. How that explains Ananta Sukha. We will deal with that next week, and then close this contemplation of Gayatri Mantra I hope I'm able to give you an entirely different perspective. Some of you may have heard of some of these, but these are all different perspectives from the hardcore Vedic philosophy, as I want to put it, from Upanishads. Yeah. Um, it's unfortunate that we have lost some of these ideas that are actually compressed in Bhur Bhuva Suvaha, but at least for some of us who attend these meetings on a regular basis, we are able to use this opportunity to understand the deeper philosophy of this, because after all, Gayatri Mantra is what we recite every day, and we need to have a full understanding of what it means. So on that note, I will close my session there, and I just want to thank you for listening. But I also want to inform you that next week is an amazing event. It is our annual celebration, Hindu Knowledge Academy annual celebration next week. It starts at 3:45 and goes on until 5:30. And believe me, lots of folks are doing a lot of hard work in the background to make it into a success. There are lots of practice sessions going on. I'm aware of people practicing their slokas, their Gita recitation, their music, just so that they can give their best and get the blessings of the Swamiji, who is going to join us from Udupi. He is going to come live from Udupi to bless us, and he is going to talk to us on the philosophy of the Upanishads and how it is relevant for our modern day living. So I hope we all attend next Sunday, and please also spread the message, spread the word. The pamphlet is out there. We will send it again today. Please distribute this to people. I know there are many folks from the US who will join. There are many people from India who are going to join, and the more we get from the UK community, the better, so that we can all listen to the great message from the Swamiji, and at the same time celebrate the tremendous success that has happened with Hindu Knowledge Academy. I really want to thank Sudarshan from the bottom of my heart, because without his vision, I don't think this would ever be possible. And Abhijit, I don't know whether he is there today. Abhijit has been the IT backbone for all this, to give us that internet online presence. So now we are looking at, stepping up the Hindu Knowledge Academy after the annual day event with various other ambitious plans. So I'll stop there, and if there are any questions, we'll take that, but we'll see you next Sunday. Krishna Pranamastu.
Madhu, Suresh here, just
Yes,
one quick question. There is also a version of the Gayatri Mantra where all the 7 lokas are chanted, right? Om Bhu, Om Bhu, Om Swaha, Om Jhanjana, Om Maha, Om Tapa, Om Satya, Om Tat Saviturvarenyam. So
Yeah.
what is that different from what Valmiki saw, or where does that fit in?
Yeah, so that one, I mean, as you know, when you do your Sadhya Vandana, you would be saying that. So that talks about the 7 lokas going all the way up to Satya Loka, where Chaturmukha Brahma is. So again, the contemplation there, if you, I remember I told you about Mahaha. So the 4 Vyaharitis, there is a Mahaha there also as a Vyahariti. The Mahaha is actually is a synonym of this Mahat, which is this Brahman who is Mahat, and then talks about this Mahat as the Vasudeva. Of forms of the Lord. So there is various contemplations of that, Suresh. So one view is what Deval was mentioning about these 7 regions is also pervaded by the Supreme. So that is why you worship him. But actually there is deeper philosophies of that. I know I am only aware of the 4, Bhur, Bhuva, Swaha, Mahaha. That I know. But if you think about the last word, Satyam, yeah, every word there is a name of the Supreme. Yeah, Satyam, the definition in Taittiriya Upanishad, Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. Satyam is a name of the Supreme. Yeah, so they say Satyam. Similarly, you will have Tapaha is a name of the Supreme. Janaha is also a name of the Supreme. So you can bring your etymology. So all these 7 words not just give a region, but they actually are indicative of the specific attributes of the Lord. Satyam is the highest. Yeah, Satya Loka, yes, that's right. But Satyam is a primary definition of the Supreme as per Taittiriya as well. So do it from that perspective. Hope that makes some logic. That's my understanding of it, but that's very limited. I think we should go and do some further research on this as to what those 7 actually means.
Thanks, Madhu. Thank you.
Okay.
Madhu, Pavan here.
Oh, hi, Pavan, yes.
So when we do Sandhya Vandanam, we say Dhyana Sloka, right? When we do the Dhyana Sloka, it is also talks about the various attributes of Narayana. And in that, it also reflects, Shankha, Chakra, Gada, Padma, all of that. So what is, maybe you'll cover it in the future or maybe in the next class, but what is the, need or why do we say Shankha, Chakra, Gada, Padma and all of that?
Yeah, sure, Pavan. Yeah, Sanku Chakra, Gada, Padma, the four things, actually, they indicate four Purusharthas. Yeah. So Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. So that is what it primarily means. Yes, of course, the metaphor there is that the Lord he has four hands and he's got four things that he holds in his hand, essentially to indicate these are actually representation of four Purusharthas that we all strive for in our lives. Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. So that is what those four indicates. That's my understanding, Pavan.
Thanks, Mother.
Right. So there is an airy silence. So Sudarshan is left, I think. So if Sudarshan is also there. Yeah, Sushil, do you want to say something? No? Okay. It's always nice to see you. Yeah. Okay.
Mother, Sudhar had to go somewhere. Sorry, he apologize to you, Mother. Sorry
Yeah,
about that.
no problem. Okay, thanks, Chitra. So in that case, shall we just call it a day, and perhaps we could call upon Harish if he is there to direct us with Om Japa, or if not, then we will have Sushrut to lead us today, please, for Om, and we close today's session.
Yeah, I'm here, Madhu. I can do it.
Okay, Harish, go for it. Yeah. Thank you very much. So see you next Sunday. It's an important day for us. Please join us next Sunday. We'll send reminders during the week. Thank you.
Thank you,
Madhu. Thank you very
Bye.
much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank